Wagons and Flatboats, a note-taking video, also known as How America Got Over Those Pesky Appalachian Mountains. It's Appalachians. Whatever. Okay, so today we're going to learn about Daniel Boone, the Wilderness Trail, the Cumberland Gap, and, my personal favorite, flatboats on the Ohio River. So our first question is going to be, how did pioneers first travel west over the Appalachian Mountains? Great question. That leads us to our first character, Daniel Boone, America's favorite good old boy. So Daniel was born in Reading, Pennsylvania, to a large Quaker family. He was the sixth of 11 children. His parents had left England's crowded cities to live on the edge of the wilderness in North America. Daniel spent a lot of time outdoors reading footprints and tracking wild animals. From where they lived, they could see the Appalachian Mountains. Pretty soon the Boone family decided it was getting too crowded, so they moved down to North Carolina via the Great Valley Road. Now back in these days, because people traveled on wagons and stuff, they found it super duper hard to get over those mountains. In fact, it was pretty much impossible. And because they all lived on the east side, they were trying to find ways to take their wagons over to the west side, but they couldn't find any places to do that. And I guess the French had some forts and stuff over there too. So this is where Daniel comes in. He was already learning from the Cherokee, a Native American tribe in the region, and they decided to tell him all about the Wilderness Trail, or the Wilderness Road, which was nearby. It was a way to get through to the other side. Now, because the Native Americans didn't have the problem of having to drag their wagons over the mountains, they were able to tell Daniel all about a mountain pass he could go through to get to Kentucky, which was not named Kentucky yet. Now, even though they could get through to the other side, they couldn't drag wagons yet because there was lots of trees and things that gummed up the way. But Daniel went through the Cumberland Gap and for the first time saw the land of Kentucky. In 1769, he led an expedition through the Cumberland Gap. As you'll see from the picture in the diagram, if you could cut trees away, you could get wagons through this area. So if you take a close look on this map, you can see that the light green area is the flatter land, the dark green area is more like the mountains, and woohoo! Daniel made it through! Sorry, oh great. And the middle green is like lesser mountains. Hey, that's cool, look at that! You can see that those three states converge right on the Cumberland Gap. So now that Daniel had made it through to the other side, he was super excited that he could go back and tell everybody else that there was a way through to the other side so that they could get over the mountains and not have to try and drag their wagons up the mountains, which was pretty much impossible. And when they got to Kentucky, oh, no, hang on. Let me just slip, there we go. Okay, now we're moving on. Just like his father, Daniel wanted to find a new frontier, and he found it in the land of Kentucky, where he found buffalo herds for the first time. Then in 1775, Daniel Boone was hired by a company called the Transylvania Company to build the road to reach Kentucky. Slight tangent, anyone know what Transylvania is famous for? The men making the trail cut away paths and made a narrow pathway through to a place where Daniel founded a town called Boonesboro. And let's be honest, if you'd done something this cool, you'd probably name the town after yourself as well. But it wasn't all a bed of roses. Daniel lived in a place where people already lived, and often they came into conflict with the Native American tribes there. Daniel lost some family members and was even kidnapped himself at one point. This would be an ongoing theme in American history. And over the next 30 years, an estimated 200,000 settlers moved west over the Cumberland Gap. It became the main overland route through to the west. And that's the story of Daniel Boone. But it's not the only story of how people went west. There was also the Ohio River. In order to get to other places, people found it really easy to float down the river, and the Ohio River became one of the most important water highways to travel west. Now you may be wondering, what is a flatboat? Well, they weren't very long, maybe 30 to 80 feet, and they used long poles called steers to steer them away from rocks. So why not just use a regular way to get there? Well, trains and railroads weren't invented yet, and paved roads weren't available. So they just floated on down that river. And you didn't need to be a sailor to operate it. In fact, whole families would go along with horses, chickens, cattle. Sometimes people would even build their boats and just wait in the river until the river thawed, and then they'd float on down the river to places like Cincinnati and Fredericksburg, Louisville, or even the Mississippi River. During the day, women would build fires on sand-filled boxes, and everyone would watch out for things called snags, making sure the boat didn't get caught. Now, there were different kinds of boats. There were keel boats, dugout canoes, rafts, but flatboats were the most important because they could float people down the river and get the whole family to a new city. Sometimes there was dangers on the journey, like running into rocks, getting snagged, or even running into pirates or criminals on the way. Now when they moved, they had to take everything with them, including animals and even wagons, because they weren't coming back. They were moving to a brand new town down the river. They only traveled about 20 or 30 miles a day, which is kind of like walking speed. Once they got there, they would take their boat and turn it into either wood or scraps, and then reconstruct their house from their boat. That's right, they would make their boat into their house. Now if you ask me, that sounds like a really super cool journey that I would love to go on. And then building a house at the end, I can't think of anything better. What about you? Alright, let's do a recap. Daniel Boone grew up hunting in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. He learned about the Wilderness Road from the Cherokee Indians. In 1769, he led an expedition through the Cumberland Gap. In 1775, Boone was hired to build a trail to reach Kentucky. Daniel Boone established a town in Kentucky called Boonesboro. Okay, now flatboats. Flatboats were used on the Ohio River as a way to float west. They could carry a whole family, a wagon, supplies, and even animals. Flatboats were deconstructed and made into log cabins at the end of the journey. Okay, this is a great time to pause and take some notes. Stick around for my Westward Expansion game instructions. Welcome to the Westward Expansion Daniel Boone and Ohio River Flatboats game, so each player starts on either New York or Philadelphia. The aim of the game is to get to Louisville first. As the teacher, you should chop up about 2 sets of these game cards. Each player starts off with 2 random cards. Each player also has player boards, and you need to collect 3 items on your player boards in order to move 1 space. So the goal player goes first and they take 1 card, which is a horse, and they get to put 1 horse onto their player board. Player 2 picks up tools, and they can't put tools onto their player board, but they can trade it with the other person. It's the goal player's turn, and they pick up oars. They put down the tools onto their player board. Blue player picks up oars, and then puts wood onto their player board. Gold player picks up wood, but they can't do anything with their turn, and the other player doesn't have to trade. So blue player picks up a flatboat and then switches with the gold player. Next, the blue player puts on the oars and it's the gold player's turn. They pick up a flatboat. Okay, now they have 3 cards on their player board. They take all 3 of them off, and I'm going to move the top player board out of the way so you can see what happens. So, they trade in these 3 cards for 1 move along the map. Now let's bring the cards back. Gold player has no cards, blue player picks up a horse and moves a flatboat onto their player board. Now they can move 1 space. There are also other cards that take effect immediately. When you discard 1 card, that means you pick it up, you get rid of it. If you pick up 2, it means pick up 2 extra cards. Steal a card means that you can take a card out of somebody else's hand. And that's the game. Remember, the aim of the game is to get from the starting position to Louisville, and check it out on teacherspayteachers.com.